We are in the midst of the worst public policy error ever. Let me provide a bit of history and the consequences of shutting the world down. In his account of the London Plague of 1665, Daniel Defoe points out the power of man was baffled and brought to an end. 350 odd years later, newer inhabitants of this planet are slowly emerging from government-imposed isolation. Our eyes are adjusting to the dim light of our new safety-first world, and they also are questioning the power of man. Having suffered through months of isolation, people are alternately anxious and bored, and so the social conversation is now turning towards who is to blame. On the disease side, we have a growing death toll of over 325,000 people worldwide. That's an additional global mortality rate of 0.004%. Compared to last year's overall death rate, which was 0.754%. The corona death toll thus adds one additional death for every 185 people who died in 2019. On the policy response to the disease, we expect near-term job losses of over 300 million, and at least half of the 3 billion plus global workforce will have impaired incomes owing to the lockdown. Economic losses are also still mounting. The short-term losses are estimated to be between $6 and $9 trillion, close to 10% of the global economy. What do these numbers mean? For every life lost to the virus, 1,000 people have lost their jobs. 5,000 people are short money, and we are all poorer by at least $20 million. That's for each and every life lost. And this is probably an understatement of the policy costs, because we do not know whether the policy restrictions actually led to reduced deaths. We do not know to what extent the economic damage will worsen non-pandemic related health outcomes. And we do not know the future track of the pandemic or the economy, neither of which is positive. So this high-level cost-benefit analysis of the pandemic response shows it to be unambiguously the greatest public policy error ever. Governments, by acting too late to stem the pandemic, and also too forcefully in closing the economy and much of the health system, imparted far too high a cost for our societies to pay. Looking ahead, we should try to ensure that these policy mistakes are corrected and new ones are put in place to address our lives and our livelihoods in a more balanced way. Specifically, we will get better outcomes if we approach our problem solving with open-minded decision-making, sensible risk assessment, and light touch policies. A starting point for that is to leave more of the response to civil society rather than to government direction. Such a market-based approach of trial and error and light touch regulation will best represent how people want safety considerations to be incorporated into their daily lives. An advantage of this approach is that it is self-correcting and avoids the all-encompassing costs of bad policy. Another way to avoid catastrophic policy decisions is to open up the political system to hear other voices and not just those with narrow public health credentials. Civic interests, technology experts, business people, social activists, economists, and others all have a perspective on society going forward that is worth considering. Continuous exposure to the public, the press, and sitting legislatures will also expose policies to the hurly-burly of democratic dissent. Viable policies will succeed on their merits in such an environment. The last general approach to avoiding policy error is to set public expectations in accordance with reality and with social preferences. There's no such thing as a completely risk-free activity, and so social restrictions should be required to pass screens based on their absolute risk levels. Those places with low and acceptable risk should be free of broad coercive restrictions, thus allowing them to find the right balance of safety measures that matches their community risk preferences. These three approaches to public policy, light touch, open minds, and risk sense, can work together to improve how we respond to the pandemic in the future. The power of man may have been frustrated in this first round of the fight, but we certainly landed far too many blows to ourselves. But improved policy can tap the strengths of our open, integrated, and democratic societies to offer the potential of more wins going forward. I'm Mark Mullins.
Commentary That Matters is a partner program of Conversations That Matter. The production of this show is made possible thanks to your generous support. Please become a Patreon at patreon.com/commentary that matters and become a subscriber so that you don't miss a single episode of Commentary That Matters.